The laughter cracked through the operating ward like dropped glass, sharp and careless, echoing off the teal walls as the young nurse's hands trembled over a stainless tray slick with antiseptic and doubt. In the middle of that bright, merciless afternoon light, she felt smaller than the bloodstain spreading beneath the gurney, smaller than the monitors screaming their jagged lines, smaller than the mistake everyone seemed to believe she was. If you're watching Broken Smile and you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, take a moment now to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because stories like this live or die on belief. Her name was Maribel Ionescu, and she had learned long ago how to stand still while the world measured her worth. She had grown up in a sun-faded coastal town where the hospital smelled of iodine and fried dough from the pier, where her mother cleaned floors at dawn and her father never came home from the sea. Maribel carried that absence like a second spine, straightening her posture, forcing her to be useful, to be precise, to never ask for room. Nursing school had been a long corridor of night shifts and borrowed textbooks, of professors who praised her diligence but never looked twice. Now, on her first week at Ridgeway Medical Center's trauma wing, she was the new nurse, the quiet one, the one who miscounted a clamp and earned a ripple of amused disbelief from surgeons who had learned to hide their fear behind authority. Daylight poured in through high windows, illuminating dust motes and the hard truth of the room. A wounded captain lay strapped to the gurney, uniform cut away, blood drying in dark petals along his temple and forearm. Captain Rowan Hale had been pulled from a training accident that morning, his convoy flipped on a country road slick with dew. He was conscious, eyes glassy with pain yet focused, a man trained to inventory chaos and assign it order. His record was a catalogue of discipline, but today his body betrayed him, tremors running through muscle memory that had once been iron. He felt the ward before he saw it, the vibration of voices, the smell of cautery, the subtle contempt that crept into laughter. He noticed the nurse with the careful hands and the shadowed eyes, noticed how she swallowed when a senior resident smirked. He had seen that look on recruits who worked twice as hard to be believed. The doctors circled like practiced planets, coats crisp, movements economical. They spoke over Maribel without meaning to, their confidence buoyed by years of daylight surgeries and night call victories. In their world, mistakes were tolerated only if made by the right people. When a tray clinked and a monitor blipped irregularly, the laughter came again, not cruel but dismissive, the sound of men and women accustomed to being right. Maribel's cheeks burned. Her mind replayed every lesson, every late-night study session under a flickering lamp, every promise she had made to herself to belong. She adjusted her grip, recalculated silently, anchored herself to breath. Captain Hale's vision narrowed. Pain sharpened into something clean. He watched Maribel recalibrate, saw the way her eyes tracked the monitor before anyone else did, saw her hand steady the tray not because she was told but because she knew. His own backstory rose unbidden, a childhood of being the quiet kid in a loud house, a career forged on following orders until he learned when to break them. He understood respect as an action, not a title. The afternoon sun flared against metal, and in that instant, something old and disciplined aligned inside him. He raised his arm despite the ache, brought his hand to his brow with a precision that silenced the room. The salute was not theatrical, it was exact, born of habit and honor. The laughter died mid-breath. The monitors kept singing, indifferent. The doctors froze, their authority suddenly recalibrated by a gesture none of them could claim. Maribel felt the room tilt. She had been bracing for dismissal, for correction, for another invisible erasure. Instead, she was seen. The ward shifted after that, as if the air itself had learned a new density. Daylight softened. The surgeons' faces changed, curiosity replacing amusement, recalculation replacing ease. No dialogue was needed, the salute had said everything. Maribel's pulse slowed. She returned to the task, hands now steadier not because she had been validated, but because she had been trusted by someone who knew the weight of it. Captain Hale's eyes never left her as she moved, cataloging competence with the same rigor he once applied to maps and men. As the procedure continued, the story braided itself deeper. Maribel remembered her mother's hands, raw from bleach, the way she had once saluted her daughter's nursing pin with a laugh that hid pride. She remembered the fear of failing publicly, the private vow to never become brittle. Captain Hale drifted in and out of pain, daylight stuttering through his lashes. He thought of the recruits he had lost to laughter, to being underestimated until they broke. He thought of the long road of recovery waiting for him, the humility of needing help. In that shared space of vulnerability, something rare took root. The doctors adjusted their posture. They asked for her input without realizing it was new. The room became quieter, more attentive. The afternoon wore on, sunlight tracing a slow arc across the floor, touching the edges of instruments and the crease between Maribel's brows. When the crisis ebbed and the monitors smoothed into steady reassurance, relief arrived not as triumph but as a low, collective exhale. The captain was stabilized. The ward returned to its rhythms. Yet nothing was the same. In the days that followed, daylight found Maribel earlier. She walked the corridors with a different gait, not taller but more grounded. Ridgeway Medical Center revealed itself in details she had been too anxious to notice, the way sun pooled near the elevators, the smell of coffee drifting from the volunteer desk, the quiet heroics of orderlies who knew every shortcut. The doctors treated her with a respect that felt earned, not bestowed. She worked harder still, not to prove herself but to honor the moment that had cracked open possibility. Captain Hale began the slow climb back, daylight physical therapy sessions where windows framed trees bending in the breeze. He watched nurses and aides with new eyes, cataloging the labor that kept bodies moving forward. He learned Maribel's history through observation, the careful way she listened, the extra minute she gave patients who feared the machines. He saw in her the resilience he had demanded of others without always offering it in return. The salute echoed in his mind not as a favor but as a correction. Suspense lingered in the small ways life tests resolve. A near-miss medication error caught by Maribel's vigilance. A resident who bristled before thanking her. A morning when doubt crept back in with the light. She broke down once in a supply room, tears silent, forehead pressed to cool metal, releasing the pressure of being newly visible. She remembered the laughter and chose not to armor herself against it. Compassion, she had learned, was not softness, it was stamina. The heartwarming twist unfolded quietly, as such things do. Ridgeway announced a patient-nominated recognition for exceptional care. Captain Hale's nomination arrived with the gravity of official letterhead, daylight glinting off the envelope as it crossed the desk. He cited precision, calm under pressure, and the courage to stand when others laughed. The committee read it aloud in a sunlit conference room, and the room listened. When Maribel's name was called, the applause was not thunderous, it was sincere. She felt the old ache of her father's absence soften into something like peace. If this story has touched your heart, please support it near the end by liking, sharing, and letting others find it. Your support keeps these moments alive. Right before the final moment, take a second to comment with what this story meant to you or who it reminded you of. The last afternoon scene lingered in the ward where it began, sunlight generous and forgiving. Maribel moved with quiet confidence. Captain Hale watched from a chair by the window, his posture still soldier straight, his future uncertain but unfolding. The world had not changed its rules overnight, laughter would return somewhere, someday. But a line had been drawn in daylight, a reminder that respect can be earned in an instant and carried for a lifetime. In that room, under the steady hum of machines and the grace of afternoon light, two lives intersected and altered their trajectories, not through grand speeches, but through a simple, unwavering salute that honored dignity where it stood, and invited everyone else to rise to it.